What is up, everybody? Zeke Rodriguez here with the always amazing Alice from Arizona,
Alice from Arizona, but not
but
really.
not
I'm from New
really.
Mexico. Yeah.
She's super New Mexican, actually.
I've lived in Arizona 30 years. That's what it is.
You
That's
did,
okay.
which one did you live more, here in New Mexico or Arizona more?
It's about the same now.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're like original Arizona New Mexico fusion since back in the day, kind of.
Fusion. I like it. I like it.
Well, yes, we are here with the Chips and Salsa Show, New Mexico, guys, not Arizona. Although we do have a Chips and Salsa Show in Arizona as well. We do have fans and followers from there, and we thank you guys for tuning in, giving New Mexico some love. And we have an amazing special guest. When I was just telling her right now, she is a hero of mine, a true American hero of mine, and I'm so honored. We're so honored to have her on here, Yvette Herrell for Congress CD2.
Yeah. Yay. Thank you so much because we've been trying to set this up for a minute now. So I'm glad that it worked out that I could be over here and love being here with you in person. I love it.
Awesome. Busy. You have like the busiest schedule.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's got amazing assistance and amazing support, and she's still just managed to find some time to come hang out with us. So we are so honored. We already having great conversation as we came in here. And for me, I've known Yvette for a while. I've been supporting her. I was a day one. As soon as I saw her speaking back in 2017, I saw her speak. I was wanting to get involved with the Republican Party. No one spoke to me locally, and I had rough issues with the local Republican Party, just being honest. But when I saw Yvette and I heard her speak and I saw how amazing everything that was going on in Alamogordo and Cloudcroft, I was like, I got to get involved. So I did. And
We're glad you did.
right. I mean, you got me here. Seriously, she inspired me to be right here where I am today. And everything I've done for politics, I wouldn't have done it had I not met Yvette. So that being said, even though I've known her for a while, there's still some things I don't know that I'm very curious about. And so I didn't know till recently that she was actually a state representative for 8 years. And you talked about, so like, if you could walk about the businesses that you're involved with, because I know you're a realtor too, right, for a while?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a realtor and I've been very blessed to have grown up in a small town, and my dad was self-employed in real estate and building and insurance. And so I've had the opportunity to own everything from dog boarding kennels to heavy equipment operations. In fact, one of the companies I last owned in Alamogordo is Alamo Earthwork. It's still there. Had insurance adjusting companies. So I say all that to say, I've really been blessed to be able to go and try new things and kind of be an entrepreneur. But also, and the key element here is to serve in the capacity, whether it's state representative or federal representative. I think it's pretty important to be able to say, what it's like to sign the front of a paycheck. Because think about it, our commander in chief has been in public service his entire life, not private sector. So he's never signed the front of a paycheck. So to understand the cost of doing business, the liability, and then understanding these mandates and these policies that are actually harmful for our small businesses. And I think when you have people in office that do not understand what it's like to own business or don't understand, what it means to employ people, and you get attached to your employees and their families, but they're the ones making policy decisions that impact your bottom dollar, and yet here they've never been involved with business at all. So, it says something, it's meaningful to be able to have that experience.
It is powerful. You're absolutely right. And even if you go and see candidates, you can tell right away who has actually experienced life and community.
You really can.
And I think it's attractiveness of Trump. Guess what? Right. And I remember when I first moved back a couple years ago, so we were running, and it was so exciting. Wow, this is great. And we had been congresswoman already and went to rallies. It was so exciting for you to be there. And I can't believe it. Yeah, you almost won.
Yeah.
Almost won. And I think that now with everything going on, and I know you're out there just running a crazy campaign. This woman's everywhere.
Follow us on Facebook. We are everywhere.
It was hard to book her because she's got so many things going on, and yet she still made time for us. So we really, really appreciate that very, very much.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. And, I think it's just important to get in front of as many people as possible to really hear what's going on in the communities, in the families, in the businesses. There's just so much on the line right now. And I tell people all over the place, personally, I really don't care how people are registered to vote. I really want people to do kind of an internal evaluation and go, what does this next election look like for me, my business, for my kids, for our future? And I believe what we've seen happen over the last number of years is the mainstream media kind of telling us how to think and what to feel. And really, they have us fighting with each other 90% of the time over the 10% of the things we don't agree on, instead of coalescing together around the 90% of the things we all want as Americans: safe communities, a secure border, lower utility bills, lower grocery bills, a great education for our kids. And that's where I'm hopeful people will start thinking about, okay, what does this mean to me going forward in the next number of years? And that's why I think it's been so important to travel around and make sure we're having these conversations with small groups, with small businesses, I go to the party affiliated things sometimes too, but right now I'm focusing on, we're New Mexico. We deserve a seat at the table. And the investments that have been made in this race from around the country are unbelievable. And it's just a testament to what this race means to not only helping to expand the majority, but what this seat means to the country in terms of energy production, 180 miles of border. We have a robust agriculture operations here. We are a team player, but we're not being treated that way now because we don't have the correct representation.
And you said it all because New Mexico is a very strong state. And it's,
Yes.
even though I've lived in Arizona
Yeah,
for
yeah.
years. See, maybe
Busted.
women-
No, I'm just kidding.
And, but I still have family here, so I come back from time to time. But
Yeah.
until you experience what it is actually to live here, but as we always said, I was talking about, there are a lot of friends that I've been connected with, and very conservative. This is still a very conservative state because, as you said, families and businesses.
Yeah.
So what's,
And the Catholic Church.
and yeah,
Yeah.
church, absolutely. Still a large Latino population. It's very conservative because of that.
So, real quick, so you talk about kind of looking at everything as a whole. You're not really toting the Republican line, and you don't have to. You shouldn't have to at this point. You're a common sense candidate. That's one
Yeah.
thing I've always loved about you. You're just trying to be reasonable and commonsensical for everybody, all the Americans here in New Mexico, right?
That's right.
So I talk to people all the time, and the main issue I think for the Democrats right now that I've been able to kind of sway them is you're pro legal immigration. You're
Yes.
strong on the border wall, but you're pro legal immigration.
That's right.
Could you speak to that?
Yeah, because we actually have two things going on here. We've got an immigration, which we need immigration reform. And why we haven't already done that is beyond me. I mean, we can streamline it. There is no reason why people that want to come here through the legal channels should be waiting years and paying thousands of dollars to do it, especially when they're coming here for the correct reasons. So that absolutely needs reform. And we can put more judges out there. We can streamline the process, the paperwork. But then we also have on the other side of that border security, which to me, that's absolutely a national security issue. We do not know who's coming into our country. We've seen the uptick in fentanyl, and it's a sad day when now, we've had that border czar for the last 3.5 years,
Oh, she's
Kamala
not a
Harris.
border czar.
She says she's not, but now she's saying she wants to secure the border. So is that admission that we've had an open border? We've had our own border patrol agents in the El Paso sector say that the cartel essentially have operational control over areas of this border in our area, in our state. And, it's just a matter of common sense to think we need to know who's coming here. We need to see that we've seen an uptick in crime, uptick in death to innocent Americans because of the fentanyl overdoses. And it's not just kids. The number of seniors that are ODing accidentally on fentanyl is through the roof. And it's because they're looking for alternatives for lower drug prices, like through the internet, and they're laced with fentanyl. But what's the real issue also is we have over 80,000 children, unaccompanied minors, now in this nation where we do not know where they are. And then just last night, we were getting an update from one of the state police officers, that they're saying, we're seeing now this huge uptick and this pressure that we're feeling on all of our communities, small communities, our counties, every single police department. And the people that are getting caught up in the trafficking, human trafficking, and drug trafficking, think about it. You've got some people that are wanting to come here for a better life, but they know no alternative except to pay the cartel. And then many of those children and those innocent victims get caught up in the sex trade, human trafficking. But then on the other side of that, you've got Americans, young teenagers, and they do this because it's harder to prosecute a teenager as an adult, and they're getting paid maybe $1,000 a head, $2,000 a head to bring people here across the border illegally and get them further into New Mexico or into the interior. Well, if you're 14 years old and you're from a family that is struggling and you can make to $10,000, you're going to do it. So we've set our kids up for failure by allowing the cartel to have the control, but we've also set up those that are coming here for the right reasons. We've set them up for potential death, and if they don't make it, potential loss of life to living. And I mean that in the sense of having to always be obligated to the cartel. I mean, we can do so much better, but it is a national security issue, and the cost to the American people, no one's talking about it. It is in the billions. And it's a shame that now that it's an election, we're 84 days away from the election. Now, yesterday, Senator Heinrich and Congressman Vasquez go down to the border, to the port of entry, to talk about fentanyl. And yet, this is our congressman who has voted over 10 times against border security and has also voted to allow illegals to vote in our elections. There's no willingness to secure this border.
So you said your opponent has voted 10 times to unsecure
More
the
than,
border.
more than that. Yeah, HR 1 was the most comprehensive border bill ever. In fact, I campaigned on it, everybody did, and it was a party line vote. But when you vote to stop Remain in Mexico, when you vote to not put more boots on the ground, when you vote against deporting police illegals that kill police officers, when you vote against the Lake and Riley Act, when you vote not to hold the Biden administration in contempt for their dereliction of duty, when you vote no on holding my workers accountable for the deaths and the things we've seen. I mean, the list goes on. And then you couple that with voting yes to allow illegals to vote in our elections, not once, but twice. And here's what's sad. Don't come to New Mexico and tout a bill you've introduced that is never going to get anywhere and say, I'm working on, bringing us together so we can work together to secure the border. Well, why is your voting record no on everything that's been important to, especially the people of New Mexico, the children of New Mexico, and the sovereignty of our nation?
Congresswoman Herrell, so everything that you say, I can totally ditto it, because it wasn't long ago I called up my Congressman Vasquez's
I
office,
remember.
and I was, complaining about the border, because that is a big problem, just as you said. Well, of course, the answer was, whoever answered the phone said, "Oh, well, it's the Republicans. They don't want to pass the legislation. That's who we're fighting." And I said, "Listen, here's full disclosure. I support Congresswoman Yvette Herrell, and I'm going to tell you this. But how can you say that when," and I can't quote as many facts that you did, but, "Well, I'll put you on the list, and that way you can get," because, yes, the Congressman is doing a lot to combat the border. Well, I never got any information from Congressman Vasquez. So everything you say, I'm just stamping it, say, yes, absolutely.
It's crazy town. And here's what makes me mad. We're talking about people's lives, innocent lives lost. We're talking about cartel having control. We're talking about the biggest industry right now is the cartel running the southern border. But here's what's so sad. To use a political, well, the Republicans don't want to vote. Really? Well, remind Gabe Vasquez that he voted no on the, HR 1, the Border Security Act, that he voted no to hold my workers accountable, that he voted no. I mean, this is, and
Got
this
the
is,
ammo.
yeah, and this is what's sad. You know who the losers are in all this? The American people.
Yep.
The people of New Mexico, because now every state's a border state. When we're kicking children out of the ability to use, youth centers or little community centers because we want to house illegals, when we're allowing people to stay in, 4 and 5 star hotels instead of, and we've got homeless veterans on the streets, and we've got moms and dads in this district and throughout the nation that are having a hard time. And we will give handouts, we will give benefits out to people who break the law to get here and not reach out to help up a homeless veteran or a family that really needs the help. It's sad. And what I say is we've got we actually have got to reprioritize. And let's put the Americans first. I actually kind of think of it as riding on an airplane when the stewardess says, "Hey, you need to put on your own oxygen mask first, take care of yourself, then you can help your neighbor." We need to take care of Americans first, New Mexicans first. Then we can, because we all have a heart for people. We're a very giving nation, but we're not very smart if we're not
Well,
going to know who's here.
and if I understand correctly, before all this stuff started, we allow legally like 1 million people to become citizens
Yeah,
and
annually?
immigrate here to the
Annually.
United States legally. And it's when we have stuff like this going on, it's a slap in the face for all those people, like you said, who are working so hard to do things for the right way and the right way. So I really can appreciate that. So once you get in, and then I will let you talk, I
No,
promise.
let's go, yeah.
Once you get in, I know this is a big high priority for you. And the great thing about our former congresswoman is you already have a lot of, you talked about relationships. You have a lot of relationships with people that are there and hopefully are going to be there as well. If you guys already kind of started to see what you got to do, I mean, if Trump gets in there, it's going to be awesome. But, I'm sure you've already got some plans going on with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, priority is the border. We've got to secure our nation, know who is here, and just kind of stop the bleeding, if you will, in terms of just the amount it's costing us. But we need to unleash American energy, because really that's how we start pressing down on the cost of goods and services. This inflation, it's wildly out of control, and it's because we're still, everything, believe it or not, everything is still tapped into energy. The cost of transporting goods and services, when you talk about fertilizers, when you talk about everything from the plastics that we use, to shipping containers, everything, it's all connected. And then mostly what I'm worried about is some of these executive orders and these rules that are being pushed through departments without even going through Congress. I mean, these things are being made in and being pushed by people who are not elected officials. So there's zero accountability. And I'm talking about things like, the Endangered Species Act. I'm talking about some of these woke rules that are going through our banking systems, that it's making it more difficult to accumulate any kind of loan opportunities, that type of thing. I mean, we're just piling on these unfunded mandates onto our businesses, onto our police departments, and through a process that has absolutely no checks and balances. And I mean, the list, you could just start with a list of like 100 and you'd still be at number one, because there's so much we need to take care of as a country. And really what I have always said is I believe this all didn't just happen just in the last 3.5 years. I think when we took God out of schools, we started seeing a bit of a fracturing. And I think in some ways we trusted government, but now we just handed off the trifecta to the Democrat progressives with the White House, the Senate, and the U.S. House. And this is what happens when good people don't get to the polls and vote. We get bad people in office. And that's why this election cycle, it's going to be critical, because we can't make these changes for the greatness of this country in the future generations if we don't. I don't want anybody to wake up on November 6th and go, "Yeah, I didn't vote." And we lose. Look at some of these House races here in town in Las Cruces. Lost by 50 votes, 100 votes, 75 votes. We lost our race by 1,300. And here's the thing. The redistricting, of course, wasn't helpful, but it wasn't the redistricting. It was the lack of a Republican turnout. In my own county, if we'd had the same Republican turnout in 22 as we had in 20, we would have won. I'm not saying landslide, but we've been able to move the needle from, 33% in Doñana County to 44.5. I mean, that performance is higher than any Republican, not because of Republicans, but because moderate Democrats and independents are saying, whoa, no to these policies that are killing our businesses, jeopardizing the future of our children in terms of not having a good education opportunity. It just goes on and on. So the vote is going to matter this time around for sure.
Congresswoman Herrell is the total example of votes count, vote matters. I mean, she's been through it. She actually won. Despite all I remember that battle. It has been a battle for her to get where she was and where she is now. I mean, and she hasn't quit. So that's why I have so much respect for her. But to get to the vote counts, it matters. That's how we get him in there. I mean, Alamogordo, we talked about this the other day, has a Republican city council, Republican county commission, Hidalgo County, Luna County. It's Las Cruces' time next, but talk about Republicans not coming out to vote. I mean, a lot of complaints say, well, my vote doesn't count. My vote doesn't count. It does count. When people show up, amazing people like Yvette Herrell win. But the two main demographics that I have an issue with, and I'll say that, is what I know now is the gun owners community and the church community. They do not vote at all.
Which is unbelievable, right? You would think those would be the first one or really
The
strong.
main voters.
We've got to get people out, because obviously our Second Amendment rights are under attack and have been for a number of years, not just on the state level, on the federal level as well. And, that's a very precious, right for all of us. And so that is so important to us. But everything is just crazy to me that we're looking at this. The moral high ground of our country has slipped so low. And it's time that we step up and go, whoa, this isn't good versus evil. This is really getting demonic versus godly. I mean, when we're giving puberty blockers, when we're giving, when we're allowing men to be in women's locker rooms, when we're allowing biological men to compete in sports with biological, look at what happened at the Olympics. I mean, this isn't morally right. And I think these conversations ought to be happening in the home, not on the political debate stage, not in the, House of Representatives, not at this New Mexico legislature. I say be who you are, do what you do, but let's identify as Americans first. And then we fix the problems. But we have now shoved all of these policies down the throats where we've got teachers that are in the classroom that are great, but they can't speak up. We've got families that know this is wrong, but they don't want to speak up and jeopardize, their child, maybe being bullied at school, what have you. And the churches have to start. You don't need to say a candidate's name. You don't need to say a candidate's party. If you're being real with your congregation, you can look to the Bible and see what it says about the budget, about Israel, about abortion, about marriage, about all of the things. And we just need to be more diligent and know this is our moment to turn our nation around.
Congressman, you're so right. I was just talking to my own priest, and I was thanking him because they're unafraid. A lot of people, whatever religion that you are, and I don't blame them. The pastors are afraid to say anything in their church. Oh my gosh. But he is not. It's kind of like focus on the sin, not the sinner.
That's right. That's exactly right. And we had a pastor up in Silver City go out and knock doors with us. A couple of weekends we did a Super Saturday up there, and and I love that. And again, this isn't about going to the pulpit and saying Democrat or Republican or what. It's going to the pulpit and speaking truth. And then I think we're all capable of doing a kind of a self-evaluation of where we're at. Look, I'm not looking for a big red wave this November. I'm looking for a big red, white, and blue wave so that we can incorporate everybody, all race, all religion, all people, but we can actually look to be the nation that is the beacon on the hill, that we can strengthen ourselves and then provide a better way of life for those that truly want to be here and come to this nation legally.
Yeah, and I want to speak a little bit more to the whole morality thing because I'm really good friends still with my old ethics professor from college. Shout out to JP. And we had lunch together recently. Actually, we were hanging out with Mr. Kane, and he's like, man, the ethics are slipping because he's never seen cheating so bad in his life. He's been a professor for like almost 20 years, and he's like, the kids are cheating, they're using AI, whatever they can do, they're cheating. So morality is slipping as a culture, and I think people tend to forget that God is in the Declaration of Independence 4 times. And it's not talking about a particular Bible, like you said, it's all religions, but that unifying message of God and being able to believe in whatever God you want and having an appeal to a higher moral authority, that's been taken away out of the schools, out of our culture, and you can see it. And we need to go back to it somehow.
We have to. I mean, you're just speaking about that. God's name is in, I think, every one of the preambles for every single state. And I think though, when you start allowing, there's no consequences. What day did we ever think we'd live to see when you can go in and, steal X amount of dollars worth of merchandise out of a store and walk out without even a slap on the wrist? I mean, what kind of example do we set? And then we wonder why, we've seen 400 and something, Walgreens closed down nationwide. We've seen multiple stores and not just little ones, not just the mall pop stuff, but the bigger multi-million-dollar stores. And we just learned last night that we were at the meeting for the Las Cruces Safer Las Cruces, the business group.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, we were learning that there's been over $1 million of liquor stolen just from the one Walmart down here on Valley.
Wow.
Or whatever street it
And
is.
just
down
a
there.
reminder, Las Cruces is about 115,000 people.
Yeah.
We're not a big
But
giant city.
this year,
Oh,
like
no.
not over time, this year. And so you're sitting here going, this is wrong. And you know who pays for that? We do. The consumer. Somebody has to, they're going to have to push those costs off. So it's bad enough that we've got interest rates the way they are, not only for homes, but you got to remember that's for business, that's for cars, that's for, bridge loans, that's for every kind of, loan you can think of or any kind of bank rate. Plus then you've got, an all-time high credit card debt. This isn't going to last forever. And we're watching globally. I mean, I don't want to get all into the weeds today. Apparently.
You can come back and get
You
into
can
the
go
weeds
as deep as you
anytime.
want.
But when you
Anytime.
look at what's happening with Israel right now, and we should be standing united and unitedly strong behind our ally Israel. But when you watch what's happening to their economy right now, I mean, they're losing it. A lot of most of their GDP comes from tourism. It comes from ag. It comes from, research and development. The tourism one, absolutely they're losing money, and it's also in the ag world. And when you see that kind of crippling in a market like that, that's going to have global implications. And so we're just not being bright. I mean, this isn't rocket scientists, but it does take somebody who believes in the greatness of this nation, who has enough backbone to stand up and say what's wrong and say what's right, and then do the right thing. And it's not always easy to, but we're losing our country because we're sitting here on our laurels. And here's the thing, when we won't stand up for justice for each other, I know people that go, oh, I don't live in Hobbs, so the energy, oil and gas isn't that important. It ought to be. And I'll be honest, when I got out of school, I thought I don't have kids in school, so I'm not that concerned about education. I am now. When I see what's happened to our schools, and praise God for the teachers that are really, really doing it right and trying to really pour into our kids. But we ought to be worried, even if we're not directly touched. And, if we're not going to stand up for justice that impacts somebody else's life, we can't expect people to stand up when it's our turn. And so I just think we're at a place right now to kind of bring ourselves back as a community, but as a country.
And I think the only answer to that is to get more people like you elected. One of
Yeah.
the things I want to ask you, because I know we're going to, okay, we still have a little time.
Okay.
How, like, you're really good about connecting with people. When I first came out here, I was impressed because you had quite a number of rallies
Yeah.
that we could go. And the cool thing about cruises, even though it's small, I mean, it's not like in Phoenix, you have to go so far ahead of time and wait in line and everything. You're very accessible. So you win. Let's set the scenario. You win. Congressman Herrell's back in office. What will you be doing as far as, like, I don't know, meetings, town halls, to keep the connection there with your people in New Mexico?
Yeah, great question, because I really believe that's really the essence of what it means to be a representative of the people. You've got to keep that line of communication open. You've got to be listening. You've got to keep your finger on the pulse. And actually, when we were in Congress, we actually had 6 different advisory committees, if you will, but these were made up of people from New Mexico. We had one for the border. We had one for energy. We had one for agriculture. We had one for veterans and law enforcement. We had these committees, if you will, and it was everything from, president and CEO of maybe an energy company down to, the guy in the oil patch field doing the hard work.
I'll be on the committee.
Yeah. And so what we would do is we would just get on the phones, and then in our office we had, like, say, for instance, Doug, one of our guys, Doug, was very engaged, very versed in public lands and issues that were happening that would impact our ag and our energy. And so we'd get on the phone, Zoom. We took advantage of the Zoom, and we'd say, here's what's going on. Here's what bills are coming up. What do you guys think? Or we'd get their input. And sometimes I'd get them on the phone and say, hey guys, I'm going to vote no on this, and here's why. Because this is going to open up amnesty for everybody. So let's look at it a different way. Here's what we're working on. And I think people really appreciate that. And we had wildly successful teletown halls. We did it with the Veterans Administrator from El Paso. We did it with other members of Congress on the Budget Committee. I mean, we tried to keep people engaged and informed, because I believe in my heart of hearts, you can't make an informed decision if you don't have all the facts. And that's why we're traveling so much and being engaged. But I just love the people of New Mexico. I've just met so many great folks, and I like being involved and engaged and, meeting people and sitting down and trying to figure out, solutions.
You gotta love it to put up with all the crazy stuff you put up with. Jeez, my knees. But another quick thing, because I like to get into what I've heard the Democrats kind of that are open to, but they're kind of have a complaining kind of a thing. So they're like, well, what has she done for Southern New Mexico? What has she done? What is she gonna do? We really want to elect. They want to vote for you, but they want to know what specifically will you do for Southern New Mexico. Do you have any plans at all that you want to divulge here?
Yeah, well, I mean, what we got to do is, like I said, working just with everybody. We got to secure the border, and I
Okay.
don't want to just say we got to secure the border. How about this? We need to finish the border wall. We need to put more boots on the ground. We need remain
Hmm.
in Mexico. We need consequences for those that are trafficking people across the border. We need to start repatriation programs with countries that don't have them currently, and stop giving people apps to get here. We need to put the value of the American people above everything else. I think we've got to go into, let's talk about life. Everybody knows I'm pro life. Now, everybody needs to understand, once the Supreme Court made the decision to overturn the Roe versus Wade, now it is a state issue. And in my time in the state legislature, I introduced a bill, have a very solid pro life voting record and stance. But I introduced a bill to ban late term abortion in the state. Nobody even realized that was legal, but it was. And so, and I said it at an interview, I wish we could ban all abortion in New Mexico. That was in reference to some of the bills I'd worked on. So now they've turned it around to, my opponents are saying she wants to ban all abortion and she wants to look, no judgment here. I just think we don't do enough to talk about opportunities like CareNet, like counseling, like financial opportunities, like some of the state programs available for girls and men, couples that find themselves in an unwanted pregnancy. We don't talk about it enough. Adoption, modern adoption. In Congress, why aren't we talking about making it more affordable and not such a hard? It's very difficult to adopt in America, and that's why a lot of people will adopt children from out of country.
That's weird. I didn't even know that.
It's very complex and it's very expensive. So there's a lot of things, but look, as a Christian, I believe life starts at conception, but not everybody believes like I do. And guess what? That's okay. But I can tell you that most people, even when they identify as, they're okay with abortion up to a certain time, they do not support a late term abortion that is taxpayer funded, abortion on demand. So we ought to not even be talking about abortion in politics. I think that's very private. I think that's a very personal issue, but sadly, it's there. But I want to make sure people know, hey, I'm pro life, but I'm not going to judge. I want to make sure people know there's a lot of options and a lot of opportunity. And so that's something else that's important to me. Second Amendment is important to me, ensuring that our farmers and ranchers have the resources and the ability to grow the food. It's 1% of the population feeding the world. Think about that. And then we're seeing all these mandates, we want electric vehicles, we want electric tractors, we want all these mandates on farm animals, farm equipment, this Green New Deal. This is how I feel about it. The marketplace will work itself out. When cell phones came out, they were as big as your head, they were expensive, and only a handful of people had them. And guess what? When technology caught up, when people understood what they were about and they got more affordable, now everybody has a cell phone. But you've got to let the market, the free market, catch up with what they're trying to mandate things. They don't even know what the rules look like. So, putting people out of business all for the sake of the Green New Deal, just like our own governor mandating electric vehicles, that certain amount on their car lot. Well, I know for a fact 2 or 3 car dealers that are like, we're done. We can't do
How
it.
can they stay in business?
Right,
You know,
right.
They
And
can't
who's
even
going to pay
pass on the
for it?
cost to us because we can't even afford.
Well, the government didn't pay for these mom pop gas stations. These franchise owners did, or these mom pop people did. So why is the government going to pay for charging stations? And the best one I've heard recently is the governor allowing the construction industries division, kind of like up in D.C., using the Department of Justice or the Department of Interior to implement charging stations in every home, and yet in the same
Every
breath,
new home that's built,
yeah,
right, will
and in
have
the
to have
same
one.
breath say, but we're going to try to make housing more affordable? Really? Because we just added between $5,000 and $10,000 per home. This is crazy town. And I've never met a person that has said, Yvette, we're cool with dirty water, dirty air. We don't care about the environment. Nobody says that.
Always said.
Because guess what? We produce energy more affordably, cleaner, and more efficiently than anywhere else in the world. So when we sit there with our hand out to Saudi Arabia or, some of these countries that, by the way, are not our friends, and giving Iran the ability to build up its, they're producing like 2 billion barrels a day or 2 million compared to like 160,000 when Trump was in office. So we're lining the pockets of our adversaries. It's just not bright. Again, I care more about the future of our country and the future of our kids. But I mean, it doesn't, again, matter what's behind the name, Democrat, Republican, I don't care, because I think the party affiliation has gotten in the way of good policy discussion and relationship. And that's what I think is really missing. I think we've kind of been pushed into this corner of, hey, you can't talk to each other. Y'all are, you're different party, different side. Yeah, guess what? I think more of us than not are kind of cut from the same cloth. And those traditional values that I think school choice is a big thing. I'm very much a proponent for it because I believe every child in New Mexico and around the country should have the opportunity to have as good or better education than the generation before them. And guess what? The people that are pushing back on school choice, they got to go to private school, just like our governor, just like the president of the NEA. It's not good enough for our kids, but it's okay for you. I mean, this is when I'm saying we better stand up and protect each other's injustices from our own government, because one of these days we're going to have to rely on each other. And I want to know that, somebody's got my back because I'm going to have your back, even if it's not, even if it's not right in my backyard or not my child or not my grandchild. I'm going to go to bat for good education for those folks.
I think the Congresswoman gets it.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
want
yeah.
you to leave, though, without letting everybody know some upcoming events, where you're going to be, so they can go
Yeah.
check you out.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing some pretty cool stuff. So I'll just let you know that Speaker Mike Johnson will be here in Las Cruces next week, and yeah, and I'll send you guys the details, and then you guys can put them out. So
Yeah.
so we're gonna have Speaker Johnson in Las Cruces, which I think is cool because we had Speaker McCarthy
I was there, I
kick us
remember.
off,
It was
and now
awesome.
we've got Speaker Johnson. So this is cool. 2 speakers in one election cycle. We've got Congressman Tom Emmer. He is amazing. He is from Minnesota. He's the majority whip. He will be in Albuquerque the next week. So I just want everybody to know, this isn't about Yvette. This is about New Mexico. This is about having a voice at the table. This is about having a common sense point of view. This is about one thing that concerns me. If we don't flip this seat this year, I fear we lose this seat. And here's why. When Heather Wilson was the congresswoman in CD1, she held that seat for a while. Then she left that seat and ran for the U.S. Senate when Pete Domenici retired. We lost her seat and we lost that Senate seat, and we've never gotten them back. Think about it. Stansberry's in that seat now, and Heinrich is in the Senate seat. And hopefully this year we'll see that Senate seat flip. But New Mexico deserves this. We deserve. I'm not saying, Republicans have it right all the time, but we know Democrats don't either. So we deserve to at least have a different point of view in these areas to represent us as a state. And so this is why I think it's so important. And, I will tell you that people from around the country are investing in this race. And again, it's not because of me, it's because of us. It's because of New Mexico. It's because we bring a lot to the table in terms of energy. We bring a lot to the table in terms of ag. We have 180 miles worth of border that we know we can fix. I mean, we should be a key player and a state that's in the dialogue all the time. And yet we're not. And people deserve more than that, because guess what? Not everybody can sell everything and move to another state. Grass is greener. But when you're in an industry like an ag industry or energy, what have you, you don't have those options. So they deserve to have a representation, and it's about people over politics. It always has been, and it always should be. But the one thing we missed is term limits. We should have term limits on the federal and state level. I
Hell
I
yeah.
really
Shoot.
never thought that for a million years that people would go into Congress for 20, 30, 40 years.
Wild.
Yeah. I don't think our
Career.
founders expected that either. And that was one of the very first bills I co-sponsored was Ralph Norman, Congressman Norman's, his term limits bill. Because, again, when you've got people that don't understand business, making business policy, and I personally think when you have people that have been there for that long, the special interest groups are the winners.
So easy.
Not the investors, not the people, the real life people investing in trying to open a business or keep their doors open or make sure their kids are taken care of. So, again, I'm hopeful that people just pray about this election, pray for our country. I hope people will support me. And you've known me a long time. This is just who I am. I mean, I never changed my cell phone number. It was always on even my card for Washington D.C. from the congressional office. I always used the same number because I always thought, heck, thousands of people have this number. I don't want them to have to figure out how to reach me. Just use my cell phone.
I will say I was in a conference call and she gave out her cell phone number. I'm like, wow, she's giving out. So I took it down and everything. And I'm like, that's pretty impressive. But I just want to real quick give a commercial because it's true. Yvette gets in there, Congresswoman Herrell gets
There you
in
go.
there and she represents the whole nation. She is a vote. She will represent you. Now, of course, she's from New Mexico and our district, but she still represents the nation. So if you want to help her out with a few bucks, fine, please do it because
Good up.
these are expensive. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, and Yvette, you're so eloquent, you're so articulate, and you're so authentic. You've always been like this. You're so commonsensical. You are a world-class candidate. You're a world-class congresswoman, and so it's just, you know, keep fighting. Keep fighting. You're inspiring everybody. And if you haven't been to one of her gatherings, I guess you can say, it's one of the funnest things. You're surrounded by like-minded people. She's just as authentic as she is at the meetings, and it's packed houses usually. So if you get a chance to come to one of her events, join us. I'll be there. I'm usually there. She sees me out there. I support her as much as I can, and it's just a lot of fun meeting people, taking pictures, and it's just always a memorable moment going to your events. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with you here the next few months.
Please come back anytime.
I will. Oh my
Anytime.
gosh, I will for sure.
Her to come back. I'm talking to your assistant, please.
Yeah, I'll tell them, get us on the calendar again. So yeah, and we'll have some fun stuff coming up as we get closer. So I'll make sure I get back on with you guys and keep.
Did we miss anything at all that you didn't get to talk about?
No, I mean, yeah, we could go on forever and ever, but you know what? We're at a crossroads. Government's not going to fix this. God is. And we've got a responsibility to ourselves and to our future generations to step out of our comfort zone and have a conversation about what's happening in this nation. And, it's our turn to shine. And I told a group of veterans this morning, we had coffee and they were like, thanks, Yvette. And I said, no, thank you, because we're just finishing the fight you started. And that's meaningful because this is for the men and women that have served this country and the Gold Star families that understand the price of freedom.
You emanate that love for this country, and we want to be fair here on this show. I want to invite Mr. Vasquez on, and I want to give him a chance to just hang out and talk the way that we're talking. And I think he can do it. I mean, he's a younger guy. I think me and him are about the same age, and I would like to just tackle the issues the way from his perspective, because you just nailed it. You hammered it. Boom, boom, boom. And I know we're not going to agree with the Democrats and everything, but most Democrats that I talk to these days are like pissed off about the border. They're pissed off about the crime, and they're pissed off about the inflation. Most of them.
Yeah, and some are even stealing our policies.
That's right. There's
Interesting, isn't it?
polling. So I want to get him on and just see what he thinks. See what he says, because for me, obviously, I support you, but I just don't see him being able to be so passionate and so emphatic about the love for this country that you have. I just don't see that. That's why I vote for. That's why I support you, because I just hadn't seen that any other candidate from the other side. I hadn't seen it.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, like you said, it's about all of us.
Yeah.
We'll invite him on either way. Yvette's she's super busy. Like I said, we're honored to have her on. She's got to get going. We got to cut the show a little early today. And just thank you again, Yvette. Alice, do you have anything?
No, I just want to wish you the best of luck. We're all praying for you, and whatever you can do to support our wonderful candidate here, Congresswoman Yvette Herrell, please do. Please do.
Real quick prayer to
Take us
end
out,
the
prayer.
show. Lord, thank you so much for bringing us here together and for giving Yvette the wisdom and the strength to get to where she is today. Please protect her and guide her and lead her to a path of victory for Southern New Mexico, for New Mexico, for Americans, and just keep us going, Lord. We're counting on you. Thank you. Amen, Lord.
Amen. Nicely done.
All right, guys. That's it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yvette.
See you
Good
next
luck.
time.
We'll see y'all later.
Go walk on.
Thanks, Facebook.